Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Amanda Williams, Senior Director of Marketing Strategy with Augeo, and I'd like to introduce our panelists. Julie Gilbert is Chief Marketing Officer with Augeo. Augeo is a global leader in employee, consumer, and member engagement strategies and platform technologies. And Sarita Parikh, Vice President of Product with Structural, a fully integrated technology partner of Augeo's in helping bring to life their enterprise level engagement platform. So welcome, Julie and Sarita.
Great to be here.
Thanks, Amanda. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us this morning or afternoon, depending on wherever you are.
Yeah. So today we are going to discuss how to advance a people-first strategy in the workplace. The Harvard Business Review recently published an article that encouraged enterprises to rethink their approach to the employee experience. The thesis being employers need to consider how their offerings make employees feel. So Julie and Sarita, you both have a genuine desire to help enterprises improve their employees' experience. You also have knowledge and experience in putting the right strategies and technologies in place to do so. So super excited to speak with you both on this topic for the next 30 minutes. Due to the short time of our webinar today, we will not be taking questions during the webinar, but we will provide details at the end on how you can submit questions to our panelists. So no further ado, let's dive right in. Julie, let me ask you, why should enterprises begin to rethink their approach to the employee experience?
Sure, thanks, Amanda. So maybe I'll start just with some high level topics. I would say over the past year, maybe more, we have watched organizations just transform what traditionally has been referred to as human resources into more of an employee-centric approach. And that's really been to people operations. So as I was kind of preparing for today, I actually did a little research and found that Google went through this transformation in 2006 and experienced many hurdles, but they were well ahead of this trend that organizations, I think, had yet to even consider. So as you know, I always say our people are our greatest asset. And how we think about that today is very different from what it used to be. Historically, HR has truly focused on benefits, compliance, et cetera, versus the entire employee experience. The way that we define an employee experience is through an ecosystem. It truly clears, I think, a path for each individual to experience their own journey. People operations, is different. It's more focused on your employees and how they feel. Are they successful? Are they productive? Are they happy? Is there good camaraderie with their coworkers? And so part of what I find interesting and kind of my third idea is that within some research by Gartner, it's really shown that employee engagement has been relatively flat since 2016. And I believe their research stated that it was because employers have primarily focused on the benefits they provide to employees and less around how do we make employees feel as a company. And I think this is why we are so passionate about our people first approach. It really creates a foundation, for organizations to foster a culture of inclusion, authenticity, the things that we want our people to feel.
So Julie, that's a great point. How do companies shift into this employee feeling mindset?
Yeah, I think while it varies depending on what organization you work for, right, across many different industries, perspectives, we actually at Augeo, we leverage a framework of 3 engagement pillars that really drive everything we do, regardless of audience or program, but it's really starts with the individual benefit. So a combination of relevant economic, emotional, experiential rewards, incentives that connect employees and enable them to help build your brand as your ambassadors because of their positive interactions with you. This could include, learning and development opportunities, growth, growth comes in many forms and it looks different for different people. And I know Sarita has a view on this, I'm sure that will come out as well. And it's not just about a title for people. So, recognition and appreciation, what we found recently from an individual benefit perspective, some people like to be recognized publicly, some people privately. And so it's really personalized to the user's preferences and giving them the opportunity to participate in the way they want to. The second pillar is group dynamic, right? So feeling a part of something significant can drive a sense of community, foster loyalty. When people participate, others want to join them. It's just how we as humans operate, right? And so it creates kind of that reinforcement and validation. People want to feel involved. They want to feel included. And so that's why we love a group dynamic. The third one is that I'm probably most passionate about is really around our shared values. So we like to tap into what employees care about most. We bring people together to learn about each other, celebrate different perspectives, appreciate those that are similar, yet maybe there's a larger appreciation around those that are different from you because they'll make you better. They'll make you think differently. And so employees, really feeling heard, whether it's through DEI initiatives or giving them autonomy to yet feel connected, taking advantage of opportunities to feel seen, they're all really important. And I think it all boils down to people operations, right? People operations really begins with thoughtful and meaningful journeys for employees. From, you think about your experience at a company, right? It starts in the interview process, goes through offer acceptance, potentially through gifting opportunities that happen when you're onboarded into an organization, and what that onboarding experience looks like. And I think the most important piece is really ongoing. Are you capturing data about your people? Where is it stored? How are you learning about them? Because our people data should really inform the entire employee experience.
That's great segue, I think, Sarita, for you. As a partner of Augio's, Julie just talked about providing this better employee experience. How can we do that through technology?
Yeah, I think so many of the themes that Julie just referenced are themes that can really be built to scale. One of the things about technology solutions is that they inherently scale. And so when we're thinking about growing employee engagement, so across the organization, there's three areas that I think technology is really effective. So the first area is around what Julie referenced as group dynamics, but essentially it's around building community, and technology is actually great at building community. So, especially in the last few years, people have instead of having this sort of broader sense of relationships across the organization and going into an office and meeting people in the hallway and those sorts of things, our day-to-day experience at work is really kind of narrowed down to the group that we work with most actively, like 5, 8, 10, 15 people that we kind of work with over and over and over again. And those relationships have really strengthened. But the challenge is that our broader sense of community across an organization is really degraded. And, we have fewer relationships across the organization. Those moments when we used to be in line grabbing coffee or just walking down the hallway and having an impromptu chat, we don't have those water cooler moments anymore. And so the question is how can we, create that sense of community, kind of cultivate what are called, these are called weak tie relationships. It's a sociology term. But the idea is that when you have weak tie relationships, that naturally builds engagement and a relationship back to the organization. It creates these group dynamics in the sense of community, that I'm part of something bigger than just the team that I work with. And there's actually quite a bit of I think decades of research around building weak tie relationships to create a stronger sense of engagement. And so when it comes back to technology, one of the best places to do that is around cultivating spaces for people to connect online. So maybe a practical example might be, for example, I love hiking. So if I connected with a hiking group with, the thousands of colleagues that I have who also love hiking, I can see what they're up to, where they go, what they're doing. I can share what I'm up to, and I can meet people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And these are just, casual relationships. Like, these are not the people that I'm working with day to day, but these types of relationships help bring a little bit of joy, a little bit of a just like boost into my day, like over and over. And that's critical to how I feel about my job. There's also an unintended positive side effect, which is that it just helps me get a view of the organization outside of my team. So that's the building community piece. There's a couple of other places where I think technology is really helpful. One is around scaling employee engagement, around helping people build a sense of or a space where they can express who they are professionally and personally. Essentially creating a rich online profile. And of course, technology is great at this. Back to the point Julie made earlier, almost any technology used today is going to have a profile. And so making sure that you have profiles that actually use the data that's already in the organization. So one of the things that we found in terms of scaling and in terms of use and impact is taking the data that you already have throughout the organization and putting it all in one place so that it's available to people, that they have this robust profile ready for them right away. And there's a secondary piece of this, which is not just the professional data, but having this sort of personal, full person view of who I am in my profile that sits alongside my professional information. We have an organization that we work with that calls it a digital desk. And their idea is, like if you're in the office and you walk by a person's desk, you can see the pictures on the wall and you can see the tchotchkes and all that kind of stuff. And you get a better sense of who this person is. And when you have that better sense of who the person is, you empathize better. You see this person beyond just the tasks and the to-dos and the deadlines that we have, but it's it cultivates the sense of like camaraderie, as Julie referenced earlier. And then the third place that technology really helps scale employee engagement is, I think, a little bit more of a nascent idea, but I think this is something that's just really growing and has a lot of research to support it, is the idea of helping people see the opportunities that exist to them across the organization. And so we all work with the organizations that have tens of thousands of employees. And when you have that many coworkers and that many locations, like all over the country, all over the world, it's hard to know what opportunities are available to you, like what opportunities might be right for where you are as a person, as a professional, for what I need right now. And so one thing that has been pretty informative, both in case studies and in broader empirical research, is that when people understand that they have lateral opportunities, so not just like growth, like up the career ladder sort of growth, but also lateral opportunities, they're far less likely to leave the organization. There's something like 12 times more likely to stay, just knowing that they have opportunities. So there's a lot of places where technology can be really effective at scaling employee engagement.
Yeah. So you both just brought up some great new strategies. Julie, is there a specific area or maybe areas you recommend employers really focus on to kind of achieve the most impact in the employee experience when starting off?
Sure. I think a key theme, or maybe a mega trend that we've seen that we're talking about a little bit right now, is called or classified as chapter and verse, meaning we now live in a time really where not keeping it real, it's not an option, right? Our world wants organizations and people to be honest, to be sincere, but also really be intentional and purposeful through your words about what you say. And so allowing people to share their story. In general, when we talk to organizations, one of the first topics that is shared very, very early on in discussions focuses around the overwhelming number of tools and partners an organization uses for their employees. How many different, chat tools do you have? Where do you store it goes on and HRIS, and there's so many things. And so, they have all of these different tools, and it's common, and by the way, okay, to think, yikes, we have so many integrations, so many tools. how does all of this come together? And where do I begin? Where do I find a place to start to create an employee experience that I'm proud of? And so when we think about that, we really start with the end in mind through two key principles. The first one being simplicity. There's noise everywhere, especially in the workplace. So make it easy to find, accessible, anywhere, anytime, easy to use, integrated into their daily workflows. Really think about your people and how they are moving through their days. And the second really being a scalable foundation. So whatever place that you build this experience, you can start simple. Just make sure that you've created a solid foundation, selecting a partner that can scale, because it enables you to build and expand the experience over time, but you don't need to boil the ocean day one. So stay simple.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Julie. And I think about just sort of in practical terms, like this idea of keeping it simple. We think a lot about that. We've talked a lot about the idea of like being where people already are. So say, for example, if people are already in teams, embed yourself in teams.
Right.
And I think the second part of that is like, every click that a person has to go through, or every time they have to log into a new system or do this or do that, like that's just a piece of friction. And so we think a lot about how do you surface the information that's most relevant to me right now, and being really thoughtful about not having, sometimes when you have an all-in-one platform and you have to click, it's so hard to even navigate or even know what's in there. And so being really clear about sort of the positioning when you have an employee engagement tool, what does that mean? That means X, Y, and Z. It means all of the things that have been referenced earlier about creating community, about having, expressing and finding your colleagues, a number of different things. But excuse me, I do think that idea of being where people already are and reducing friction are key.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, Sarita, it's all great points. And really, when you're expanding on the employee experience, like you want your employees to see and feel that organizational shift, right? When these new tools are available. So to your point, eliminating friction, keeping simplicity is key, especially today. And you want them to instantly feel connected to something larger, right? It's kind of that shared purpose we discussed as one of our strategic pillars. That's exactly why we have it. You want them to be able to see that intentional strategy, that effort from their organization to engage, connect, and really, open different ways for them to participate with you. And to reinforce what you shared, that people experience should be found within a single place. And you think about what is that experience? That experience could be swag stores, to company communications, registering for different company events, learning about new opportunities, getting to know their coworkers, celebrating milestones. There's so many things that make up the employee experience. Even, and our security team will appreciate this, but our annual security training and quizzes, how does that all come to life within your experience? How can your employees share their story and their journey? How can they compete friendly, but how can they engage in friendly competition, competitions and leaderboards, access to resource links, all of those things. I will also share that while all of those things kind of come together to create the experience, at the core of that experience will always live your people data through profiles, recognition, and rewards. It's truly how people connect, how they learn about each other, and how they express their gratitude for each other, which in our world today is of utmost importance. And so as we think about, data and insights will always be major trends for success in our world, regardless of what we're talking about. We've actually found that companies are reflecting internally and looking at how much they know or don't know about their people. And so back to Sarita, what you were saying earlier around these people profiles, they are critical to creating that meaningful experience. Leveraging profiles doesn't have to be a big mountain we climb either, because we think, okay, it's a profile, the employee comes in, it's all empty. How do we get them to fill it out? Well, we do leverage, we can leverage opportunities to autofill information. And I think also more importantly today, even more than a year or 2 years ago, if you reward employees for adding information, and I'll sidebar with a comment that a ton of our research on the consumer side of our business shows that consumers generally are willing to give information in exchange for something else. Well, when you really think about it in its most simplistic form, employees are consumers too. People are employees, they're consumers, they're members in their day-to-day lives. They react the same. And so I think there's an opportunity there to reward them for filling it out.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, I think in addition to all of the things that you just referenced around filling out data, I want to go back to the earlier point that you made.
Sure.
You know, I've learned this in my own experience that like people are like, oh, profiles, there's so many profiles. But I think one thing that's critical is like almost every organization has data about people in so many different systems. You have HR data and project data and skills information and just like sometimes like random spreadsheets here and there. And one thing about just human behavior is that when you have, if a person comes in and they see a blank slate, it's intimidating. It's almost overwhelming to like go in and fill it out. And you wonder, why would I do that? But when this is where technology is really practical, if you apply your technology and you pull all of this data together and somebody has something very concrete to respond to, and I come in and I see, oh, my experience is here, all the projects that I've worked on are here, the skills are here, then it's more about tweaking. And it's like the bar is so much lower. And so again, it comes back to the idea of like friction and usability and just really thinking about working in the grain of how people operate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the world around us is going to continue to shift and evolve, right? So we'll kind of look back and just recognize that while we think about the experience, being able to say thank you is truly table stakes when it comes to your people experience. And then Sarita, to your point, the data through people profiles informs the entire approach. And so that's how it all kind of comes together. People need to feel, from my perspective, that they are appreciated, that they will be rewarded for their dedication and service to your organization. Do your people know that today? I think is a good question. And so there's a lot that sits at the core of engagement. Some of that being data, profiles, rewards, recognition, that brings all of the other elements within that journey into a single cohesive experience.
Yeah. Well, we only have about 5 more minutes of our webinar. So I want to make sure we kind of get to this question because, we work with so many global organizations, and these organizations have multiple offices, right? And these offices aren't only in the United States, they can have an office in Europe, they can have an office in South America, Canada. So, and then on top of that, they have employees working remotely from home. So Julie, my question is, what is Augeo's approach, or, what do we recommend for companies that are in these scenarios that, how did they engage employees in all these different locations in meaningful ways to them?
Yeah. I'll respond and then maybe Sarita, I'll kick it over to you too. But, I think our world is hybrid, right? For the foreseeable future, it's here to stay. So in general, it just requires a shift in how we onboard our new employees, how we're communicating out to the organization, but maybe more importantly, how we're bringing people together in meaningful ways through intentional hybrid strategies or through finding time, if it's possible, to be together in the same location. But it will primarily result in unifying the experience across an enterprise, and it needs to be inclusive and accessible. Some of the key themes that you've heard from us throughout. For global organizations, we always ask, is the employee experience consistent for each employee around the world, to complement what many of us are experiencing in a hybrid workplace? So if you work for a global organization, how does your employee experience translate from the US to Canada to Argentina and across other countries? You really want a space for your employees to connect regardless of in office, remote, and sometimes in office could be if you're in manufacturing, or if you are, in a different environment and you're not behind a desk in a corporate role. And if you're in US versus Dubai, how are you accounting for all of those different roles and the ways that those people go about their days and how they have an opportunity to come together? I think it's really important to kind of think about it through the lens of all the different roles and people and how they work, right? How they spend their days together. So I think, in general, people want to feel the power of gratitude, right? They want development opportunities. They want to feel connected to other employees and truly, form that community at your organization. While at the same time, organizations are seeking to be viewed as, hey, we've created a contemporary, cool employee experience. We are leveraging insights about our employees, that profile data, engagement scores, metrics, to better understand their people. Their people want to feel that they care, right? And continue to foster inclusive, diverse workforces to strive for that people-centric workplace that truly thrives.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring Sarita, you into this question really quickly, as you had mentioned employees looking at job changes, not only vertically, but also horizontally. So do you have any points here in regards to global organizations and how they can do that with these different locations?
Yeah, I think so much of this is around transparency and having people feel like there's a level playing field. And this goes back to definitely the inclusion themes that Julie referenced earlier. But one of the most critical pieces right now in all of the research around DEI is around, like, how do you create these structured, systematic processes that are transparent and that are, like, equally applied. And I think that this is just a great way for, I think just technology is a great way to ensure that you have that kind of consistency. So sort of shifting away that from the idea of, like, who you happen to know or what you happen to look like, that in fact, it's not just that it's this private set of information, but that the information in terms of opportunities, in terms of people's skills, where I can go, all of that is readily available to people across the organization, irrespective of location, irrespective of anything else. And you can really narrow it down to both skills and experience. And so I think, again, for me, all of this is around scaling these ideas so that they apply equally across to everyone across the organization.
Great. Well, I just want to say, Julie, Sarita, thank you so much for your thoughtful conversation today. We learned how gratitude, development opportunities, just a platform can connect people in so many different ways. And so I want to thank our audience also for watching today. As follow-up, we'll send you all an email where you can download our guide to the art of employee engagement. It'll help you in building a culture of connection, collaboration, and recognition. And also any questions you have, please email us at info@augeomarketing.com, and our panelists will definitely be responding to your questions. So thank you again.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Sarita.
Thanks, everyone.